This is Don Hyman, Chair of the Fairfield Harbor Management Commission, and we are starting our meeting of May 21, 2024, and we have a quorum, all present, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance on this beautiful day. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is the approval of the minutes. You would have received the April 16 meeting minutes from Betty. All right. Are there any questions or comments or concerns about those minutes? What was written in them? That said, I'll welcome a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
And can we vote on approving the minutes? All in favor of approving them? Oh.
I'll second.
It's always something. Thank you. Vote on approving the minutes, please. Raise your hand if you approve.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much. The minutes are approved. Okay. Is anybody else on the call? I think Bill and Mike are on the call, right?
Hey, it's Dave Henry here. Sorry for being a little late.
And Dave Henry. Okay, and seated next to me is Doug Metchick, and across from me is Belinda Shepard, and Commissioner Jeff Warren is also here. Okay, so we have a full house. We have a full and interesting agenda. A lot's happened, and a lot's going to happen. Things are kind of firming up that we've been talking about for a long time. Now things are kind of starting, I think, to solidify a little bit. Let me go through my report quickly. The first item involves conversations I've had with Mrs. Jessica McManus. I think some of you may know Mrs. McManus. Raise your hand if you know her, please, so I know who I'm talking to. Okay. Mrs. McManus lives on Harbor Road, directly across from the entrance to Lower Wharf, and so has a bird's eye view of that. And we've talked about Lower Wharf with her a couple of occasions. And the first thing I wanted to report, we'll get to the business of signs later on in the meeting, and you will have seen the email that we sent out on May 17th, I think, with more detailed information on that subject. But Mrs. McManus is interested in perhaps donating a replacement bench and memorializing it with a plaque at Lower Wharf. As you probably know, the deed for Lower Wharf limits us to 3 6-foot benches on Lower Wharf and no more. Somehow one of those benches has a plaque dedicated to Bob Lee. I don't know Bob Lee. I don't know how that plaque got there. Hi. Welcome. But we will need to discuss later in the meeting, if there's time, or at another meeting, if we need to, developing, I think, some kind of a policy that deals with this, because it's come up a couple of times. You'll remember, I think most recently, the police department wanted to dedicate a plaque in memory of Megan Ravis, who many of you know of or know. And there have been others before Megan's death. And we need to have a policy on this rather than just doing it one-off or referring to back minutes. I'm going to suggest we have some kind of brief, clear policy that we post on our website so to guide us in the future, and we'll determine that. Second, I've had conversations, of course, with Anthony Calabrese. Hi.
Sorry, late.
Thank you for coming, Chris. Anthony Calabrese has agreed to this, what we're calling the two-sign strategy for managing risk and communicating public safety information at Lower Wharf. One sign would be at Yee Yacht Yard, seen by all people walking by from Yee Yacht Yard parking to the entrance to Lower Wharf. The other sign would be on the property that adjoins Lower Wharf, where a sign is required to be posted per the deed for that property. That deed is the 2019 deed versus the 1999 deed for Lower Wharf proper. So we have 2 deeds, 2 signs, 2 sets of issues, so forth. It's been a lot of fun. And I'm happy to report that Laura Lawler of the Sasquatch Association and Pam Toner of the Southport Conservancy have been very supportive all the way through this process. For myself and others, they have understood the need for a sign, as have neighbors, frankly, on Harbor Road. It is the design and placement of the sign that became something that we had to talk about, which was fine. They made some very positive suggestions to deal with it. Kind of item 4 and 5, some of you in the room were able to come to the wonderful recognition and celebration we had for the gentleman on my left, Mr. Stedman, who was honored appropriately, and then it went on to kind of distinguish himself yet again with a doubleheader of bond application work this past week, along with help from a lot of other people, Betty, town engineer, Hurley, and others in town government, but really with not a lot of notice. In fact, I think we got one call from Tony Huang on Tuesday and another call from Jen Leeper on Wednesday saying these applications need to be in Friday. And the applications are really, if you're an application or detail fan like I am, they were put together quickly but very comprehensively, and they reflect the full scope and kind of passion behind the need to renovate and repair and replace Lower Wharf. And they were done quickly and properly, and Jeff led that effort with great distinction in my view. We'll talk more about that later. And then we also, of course, got updated cost estimates on that from Devin. Thank you. Thank you very much, Devin. And then you would have seen I'm sure Harbor Master Leclerc will talk about the survey work that the Army Corps of Engineers was doing in Southport Harbor recently. I don't know if they're still out there or if they're currently still out there. We'll hear more about that. And then I learned from our moderator that at the RTM, Marcy Spolyar, that our budget, which reflected a 4.32% increase, a $1,000 increase, $1,000 on top of $23,000 becomes a 4% increase. And that, of course, was the extra money we asked for on a one-time basis to deal with the sign, which I mentioned earlier. And the RTM understood what we were doing and respected that and funded it. And then finally, I did write to Michael Nishbal. Is Michael Nishbal here? I invited him to come if he wanted. Michael Nishbal is a town resident who had a question on why we needed to replace Lower Wharf at all, and why we needed to do that work. I answered those questions and told him why we were doing that and why we have a bipartisan effort to secure funding to do that and to shore up the deteriorating bulkhead that's there. And I wrote him a letter, and I guess it was satisfactory because I invited him to come and join us and talk more if you had any concerns. So that is those are the brief dealing with the things that I've been talking to people about over the last month. And I think now we can move on to the Harbor Master's report. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everything is under control in the harbor, vessel-wise, mooring-wise, in general. Boats are a little bit slow going in this year, as you probably noticed, because weekends have been less than sunny and warm and dry. So they're coming in, though. We're seeing more every day. We have 2 vessels recently came off the wait list, power boats, and went into the harbor because of boats that we're not renewing. So we're making some progress that way. Army Corps of Engineers as you heard from the chairman, arrived with their large survey vessel a week plus ago. They were going to be out for a few weeks, at least till the end of this week. Jeff spoke with them this morning, so he can give you more of an update as to how long they're there. They are surveying the harbor and the boundaries, both water side and land side, in connection with the dredging. So we have parameters as to where the dredging, how far the dredging will go. So that's a good step in the right direction. Lower Wharf, because we've made some changes working with the Yacht Club, our mooring contractor, we've made some changes with mooring placement to accommodate all the boats that have been from the Perry Green issue. As you know, the fence has gone up, the construction is, I think it started, there's some equipment there, there's some stakes there, so that is going on. A number of the boats were relocated over to South Benson Marina, some of the smaller boats that the town manages. There's a half dozen or so that they manage. The rest of them that I manage, we've put them in other locations in the harbor. So we're able to keep them in Southport for this year. That project's not going to be done until end of October, I think, the earliest. So we're going to do that for the summer, Perry Green, in that condition. A couple of events, we went to the commissioning at the Yacht Club on this past Saturday. This coming Saturday, we'll be going over to South Benson for the Memorial Day Sea Ceremony, which is a very nice event for any of you that have never been to that. It honors people who have lost their lives and served in the military. It's a great event. The wreath is at the same time. There's the parade is coming. We've been going to meetings on that. The Blessing of the Fleet and the Street Parade is June 8th. High tide is midday, and at about the same time we'll be going through for the blessing of the vessel. Just about 5 minutes of noon, or noon itself. There'll be the parade, there'll be the hot dogs, the usual event. We've been sending out communications to everyone, usual pre-season communications about harbor safety issues, the fact that there's a survey vessel, give it leeway if it's out there doing work. The fact that at low tide, large vessels are going to be extremely restricted coming in by the lower wharf, so you may want to consider one-way traffic rather than trying to squeeze by a large vessel. If you see someone coming, hold the position and let the large vessel come in. We'll be sending more of those out this week as we approach the holiday weekend, reminding people again about safety issues, boating while intoxicated, about life jackets. I went to a seminar in Deep talking about boating safety and got all the stats about the fatalities from last year in Connecticut. And there's a common thread. Usually it's alcohol related. Number two is unfortunately people that go in the water without a life jacket, or in one case, a sailor who had his self-inflated life jacket on just in case, and he fell overboard and the self-inflator didn't work because the cartridge is no longer charged, something most people don't even think to check on their self-inflating jacket. So that's a reminder to everyone, just keep an eye on your gear, don't assume it's all working and ready to go. So we have a safe season. We'll be having the safety training drill again with the Yacht Club. And we had one vessel who took safe harbor about 2 weeks ago. A young man on his 25-footer was sailing down from Montreal to New York City, and it got a little rough out when he tried anchoring off the Southport. So he came in, he spent the evening at Ye Yacht Yard dock, the dinghy dock. He was able to get the boat in there. There was some opening, and took off the next day, and everything was well. So, no issues.
Do you have a date for the safety training drill with Pequot? Is that?
I don't know, do we have a date yet?
We don't have a date yet. It's down to 2 days, and it's the third week in June.
Third week in June.
I'll be sending out.
We'll let you know. It's a great event to watch.
Yeah.
From someone could come out on my boat, or not all of you. It's not very big. It's or you rescuing me. Maybe one or two of you out on my boat at most.
Yeah, I wasn't able to see it last year.
Or just watching from, you could see it clearly from Ye Yacht Yard. That's the staging area for the fire and the ambulance. The incident commander. So it's a great event to watch and to listen to. I could put the VHF on in the building there so you can listen to the communications that are happening for that. And it's a great way to train the staff, to show them the responsibility that they're going to have if something happens, and how tough it is to find things in the water, and how long you have to wait for the police and the fire to come on a good day to help you. So you have a lot going on. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Moving on, we have no new applications that I'm aware of. And now we're in old business, and I want to take care of item 1. This is what we're calling the 2-sign risk management plan. This is the successor to the 1-sign plan, which you approved, which the commission approved, I think early this year, or late last year. And you all received by email a lengthy document, which I have hard copies of here, thanks to Betty, if anyone doesn't have it. That's kind of important for this discussion. It includes a summation of why we are where we are. It includes the conversation that I've had with the town attorney and with one person in particular, although there are others, who lives on Harbor Road, who had some observations that we needed to consider. That would be Berkeley Soper and her husband Maxwell Soper. And they offered some very thoughtful commentary, I would say, to Belinda, who's been invaluable, along with George Harris, as we tried to deal with these challenges as they've come up. In addition to that communication, I have pictures of the sign that you all probably have seen many times and not thought about much, the sign that says, "Welcome to Ye Yacht Yard." It's a very simple sign with what looks to be cedar frame or something like that. And that will be the model for the sign that we will put elsewhere at Ye Yacht Yard that contains the information and the messages approved by the town attorney and Peter Ritchie, our risk manager. It's a variation on the language for the sign that you've already approved. It just streamlines part of it. We have removed from the larger sign number 1, which would go just off Harbor Road in the vicinity of the kayak rack, somewhere in there where the town feels comfortable putting it. And it would include the half dozen or so bullets of information that we've been talking about for quite some time. It would delete those prohibitions, which are really reserved for the other piece of land adjacent to Lower Wharf, again, per the 2019 deed that requires that such a sign be posted there. That will be a much smaller sign, also framed in cedar, also echoing the existing kind of sign design, if you will, long in place at Ye Yacht Yard. People on Harbor Road seem to favor the kind of beige look, the bold blue post and white sign, even though that kind of motif is available all over town, and certainly at Southport Beach was too vivid for some people to look at all the time. So we moved to something softer, more natural, more beige. And I think that, when I ran this by informally with someone from the Historic District Commission, and they said that should be fine. That was an informal conversation at Pequot Yacht Club, not a formal discussion. But I'm optimistic that with your approval today, we can move quickly, create a new application for the Historic District Commission, and present it to them. And once we get a certificate of appropriateness from the District Commission, then the sign maker can fabricate the signs that we need. We can put these signs up, and we can be done with this project, which would be nice. So with that said, are there any questions on this? Yes.
Just a couple comments. We spent so much time on this, just for consideration. My feeling all along is that the properties are in the National Register Historic District, so less is more in terms of what we place there. And regarding the sign on the 1101 Harbor Road, looked at other beach signs, and my thought, just for consideration, is not to put a permanent looking sign there. But, as you walk through dunes, you'll see keep off the dunes or this way to the beach. But something that's similar to what the property owner has. The property owner has a small sign. It doesn't give an impression of permanence being cemented in. It's in the beach. It says private property. So we could, up to you, of course, we could fabricate a 12 by 18-inch sign with a white background, blue letters, and just a simple statement of what the rules are, what the restrictions are, and put it on a simple wooden post. And it wouldn't have the appearance of something that's set there permanently. It's part of the beach, and we could do it for less than $100 when I talk to different people about doing that. So that's just my suggestion, and the more substantial sign at Yee Yacht Yard, that's up to Parks and Rec, but my thought was that what goes on, well, not what goes on, what could be considered is something that doesn't look permanent, because the beach isn't permanent on that little property. Something similar to what the property owner has, and could do it for less than $100, and if it washes away, we either find it and put it back, or we do another one. That's just my thought.
I don't know if you've looked at this part of the memo.
Oh, yeah.
This sign is the smaller sign that would go there, and it seems to kind of align with your thinking. It is definitely, this sign is, right at the ramp. It is very vulnerable to high tide flow. It too could be washed away, probably has been washed away. But something like this is what the committee wanted to do, and what we've run through with all concerned in town government.
Well, but for clarity's sake, in this picture, I think what you shared is that we would be moving away from the red, white, and blue type of sign that is, I think in this example or others, into one that is a more subdued sign that I think is consistent, at least directionally, with what Jeff is saying. Whether a sign is permanent or not is a different sort of thing, but I think you're talking about an impact.
Yeah, we want it to be able to be noticed, but we don't want to traumatize anybody.
So for clarification for the minutes, you're considering signs similar to this at the newly acquired piece that requires the
the 2019 deeded parcel, something like that.
Okay.
But it won't. It will not have. It will not have the icons that we had. You remember the no swimming icon or the no kayak. I'm not sure what the icons were. I remember that, but there will be icons on the larger sign, and there's a reason for that, because not everybody that comes to Lower Wharf speaks English or reads English. And
the size of this sign?
Sizes have not been specified yet, exact sizes.
Okay.
One will be the larger sign that goes at Yee Yacht Yard along Harbor Road will resemble or be in size the existing Welcome to Yee Yacht Yard sign. The exact sizes will actually probably not be determined by us, but by the Historic District.
Yeah. So I think what we're talking about is a resolution that would create an application with the Historic Commission, right? On a two-sign plan, one would be a smaller, more subdued plan on the parcel at 1109 or whatever the address is, and the second would be the larger sign at Yee Yacht Yard.
Correct.
So this signage is also, you're going to need the approval of all of the same individuals.
No, because the new sign, this is important that you understand, the new signage would not go on Lower Wharf. And Lower Wharf comes with a list of people, some living, some dead, who have legal stature and can object to or comment on or need to approve signage. Because the sign will not go on Lower Wharf per se, it will go on Yee Yacht Yard land.
So it's not going to go on the newly acquired piece.
That's
No,
not
what-
good.
Sign number one.
Sign number one will go
The
on,
smaller one will go on the deed that's the newly acquired piece, not on the part that's the larger portion.
Right.
and what's confusing you is what confused me and others too. The land to the south of Lower Wharf, that rocky area with a tiny beach, is technically not Lower Wharf. I had thought it was.
Right, the newly acquired piece. I was just more concerned with the language in the deed when it was acquired, because it had incorporated all of the restrictions in the first piece. So you have all of the restrictions, and new piece, but it did require a sign, and I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, the sign, if you look at the email, if you look at the communication we got back from the town attorney,
Okay, we don't need to do that now.
No, well,
for
actually it
purposes
does.
of the minutes,
Right.
I wanted clarification.
Sign-
I would say for
look at sign 2, copy from the town attorney. That is the language that will go on the sign.
Okay,
which is the legal language that was agreed to when the deed was acquired by the town.
got it, thank you.
But the no swimming sign will be in the yacht yard.
Correct.
Even though that's the problems all start with the swimming in the lower,
I would say this, but I'm to that point, which is a very good point. Eventually, the Harbor Management Commission will be in a position, 1-2 years from now, I don't know when we have a restored pier, a whole lower wharf like we used to have. At such time, that commission can consider additional signage if and when it wants to. That would perhaps reinforce other information or elaborate on it or whatever. That's not possible to even consider now. And I'm not necessarily recommending it, but people will have that option to put a sign on that pier.
And that's a wooden post, correct?
What?
That will be placed on a wooden post.
Yes.
this
Okay.
one.
Yes, this will be a wooden post. This is the kind of model we're looking at, but it won't say yacht yard on it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm just a little confused. Is there now not going to be a no swimming sign at the lower wharf?
There is a low swimming sign there.
I know I had it put there,
Thank you.
because that's the biggest problem I have.
There won't be
Yeah,
any- there-
swimming from the lower wharf,
That sign will not go anywhere.
small little metal one, yes,
It stays there.
okay.
There won't be an additional sign on Lower Wharf. That stays there. People walking to Lower Wharf will see a sign that says no swimming.
Oh, that- I'm just confused about one of the questions, the no swimming would be a yacht yard, because that's not a place where anyone swims. Nor should they, that's why we put the soft bottom sign up there, because that's really dangerous,
Yeah.
at the bottom.
Yeah.
People don't swim there, they jump off at Lower Wharf or try to swim across. And that's where we've had problems
Right.
the last couple of years until we put the sign up and got tough on the enforcement.
What I'm suggesting is that down the road, the Harbor Management Commission will have the architecture available to put a sign up that could cover whatever it wants to cover, if it wants to.
As long as we leave the no swimming sign.
Yeah. And the sign that's at the yacht yard is indicated that the lower wharf is ahead, and these are the parameters for it. But if you don't mind, I would just like to weigh in on one thing. This has been the subject of many of these meetings. There are definitely a lot of stakeholders with opinions on this. It started with, we have to remember, one, there is a legal requirement that the town is bound to from the 2019 deed. That's a legal requirement. The town attorney, in terms of risk, has put forward a second set of requirements as it relates to no swimming and some of these other things. So Don, Belinda, George, others in the group have spent a lot of time, from Sosquenog to local residents to the town attorney to the legal requirements on the deed, to try and come up with a solution that satisfies all of the stakeholders. It is not a question of sign or no sign.
Yeah.
There is a legal requirement that happened when the deed was acquired to put a sign on that one property, the smaller one adjacent to the lower wharf, and the town attorney has put a requirement forward for the risk on the other one. So from my perspective, because I know how much time has gone into this with the folks that are there, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the two-sign resolution, the small sign on the deed that was donated, the 2019 deed, with those legal requirements, and a sign at Ye Olde Yacht Yard that's indicating the wharf is up ahead with the comments from the town attorney on that, and submit that as an application to the Historic District.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor of that resolution? Oh, I need a second.
Seconded.
Thank you. Seconds. All in favor of the seconded resolution?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to the resolution? The resolution is unanimously approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everybody, for your
Thank
input
you.
on that.
Okay, I think we can move on now to the second item under new business. Devin, this would be the work here.
Don, you sure you don't want to talk about the sign a little bit more, just for prosthetics sake?
We have done everything we can to avoid using obscenities talking about the sign, and I'd like to continue in that direction.
We tried to present Jeff with a sign last week at the celebration, but the town wouldn't have it.
Thanks, Don. So you'd like to hear from us now, or?
Please.
Okay, thank you much. Thanks for accommodating on the agenda. I'm here tonight with David Rosso, Commodore of Pequot Yacht Club, and Massachusetts Manager Raymond. David, Raymond.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you very much again. My name is David Rosso. I'm the Commodore of Pequot Yacht Club. I'm here to introduce some of our near-term plans with respect to our waterfront. Before I get there, I want to thank the Commission for its continuing efforts to remove the sand encroachment in the channel. It's a very important piece of work you guys are all undertaking, and we appreciate your efforts. Pequot's a 100-plus-year-old club, and many of our assets are older than 100 years old. Namely, the asset that keeps us together is our seawall. Our seawall was once a frontage for trading when Southport was a trading town. We use it to mark and support the edge of land and the beginnings of water. The seawall has come under recent examination because it is over 100 years old and because we know it is a critical asset to us and the existence of the club. We've had it monitored, we've had it analyzed, and recently we have made the decision that we believe it is so important to us that we would want to design, engineer, and permit a modern or a properly engineered solution using modern techniques. The wall right now is built from stacked stone. There are various sections of the wall. Our most vulnerable section of wall is if you split the wall into third, it's our center third. That's stacked with tiny little stones, probably about 2.5 feet wide, and it's probably about 12 to 14 feet tall, and that's holding back all the earth behind it, including the pressures of our clubhouses. The other motivations for us on this seawall project are to protect our club and the access to the water from rising sea levels. This is documented data provided by NOAA. We experience it anecdotally with, I think we call it sunny day flooding events. That is the closest term that I can give you. It's about 200 days a year, or 200 times a year, we breach our seawalls and it floods into our parking lot. So what are we trying to do here? Well, it's really hard to explain, but one of the things with these walls is that they're very hard to predict when they're going to fail. They just decide they're going to fail, and one day they go crumbling down. So it's not going to give us a lot of lead time to know when the wall is failing. What we'd like to be able to do is design it, engineer it for an appropriate time period now, using our modern techniques, get it permitted, keep the permit in our back pocket, and pull it out in case the wall does fail. So we're able to build a proper wall. If we don't have a permit, we are allowed to rebuild the wall, but we have to rebuild it exactly as it exists today, which means it's an inferior wall when compared to modern techniques and modern engineering. The other side of it is, so what are we thinking of aesthetics? We're looking at this very similar stone face. All the structure for the wall would be hidden behind it or shoreside, and would look almost identical to what it is today. We don't have a timeline for replacement, again, this is a preventative measure and a preparedness measure. That's our seawall project that is currently, we've engaged Grace to provide the design, engineering, and permitting services for that project. The other asset that is on our minds, though not 100 years old, is our dock system. Our docks are 42 years old. They've been in service continuously for those 42 years, and they're starting to get to the end of their service life. We're planning to replace them, and we know we have a number of different regulatory agencies that we need to get a permit from or approval from. The Army Corps and the DEP are probably the big two. And we want to go down that route with them. There's a partnership that we have with your committee and our relationship with you in the harbor. So we're letting you know what we're up to and certainly welcome your feedback. So as we look at our docks now, our docks being 42 years old, as an officer of Pequot Yacht Club, I'm also responsible for making sure that what we build is a best fit for our future needs. We've gone through many iterative design processes to determine, can we make our docks look, work, and function better. Substantially, we've learned that our slip design, which takes up roughly 2/3 of the waterfront, is about as good as it's going to get. So we don't anticipate many significant changes to our slip design. We believe we have about 18 or 20 different slips there. This also includes the fuel dock, face dock design, location and its design. The fuel dock, which is a name for a lot of different, it's an all-encompassing name for a lot of services we provide to the public and our members. We're the only provider of fuel in the harbor. We have a free pump out service. We provide water. Ice is available. We have restrooms. It's a refuge for stranded sailors as well. That design area won't necessarily be touched much. We find that there are some functional improvements we can make to the north side, or the north extension of our dock system, where we have our junior program primarily. This junior program is subscribed to by members and non-members, public participants, and the public makes up about 60% of our enrollment. We believe that there can be improvements there. The basic improvement that we've suggested is, Matt, can you illustrate how the dock right now is an L design, and we're looking to fill in the L slightly. So it's
for the filling, yeah. So we're looking to fill in this area now.
Right. And that's about as aggressive as we could get when it came to improving the functionality of that section of docks. We're also looking to, there's a small little orange rectangle, which we would use as a temporary bridge to connect the fuel dock to what we call the junior docks. It aids us in flow of boats and people during busy regatta time. But that would kind of be disconnected when those events are not happening. The entire system, the entire dock system, if you will remain, off, or remain out of the federal project and will remain out of the HMC's offset to the federal project. And where we're looking as far as timelines for this project, like I said before, the permitting is a hurdle we must go through, and that could take several months. Ideally, we'd like to begin construction next, late fall, which would be late fall 2025, going into spring 2026. And there would be no impact on the services that we provide because they were in the off-season. I'm happy to answer some conceptual ideas. I defer some of the details to Matt and Devin because, well, we hired him and they should have that information. But thank you for allowing me to present these two concepts that we think are very much needed at Pequot.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Just one point here is, we're here tonight in front of your commission, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. This isn't a formal pre-application. This is an opportunity to get your feedback. The club is a good partner with the town. We feel the town is a good partner with the club, so we want to engage discussion. That we'd like to come back with a formal submittal at such point. Have some level of ideally concurrence between the aims of the club and the needs of the harbor.
So this is a thoughtful briefing, a preliminary discussion.
Yeah.
That at some point in time will be followed by a more formal submission.
We haven't reached out to DEEP yet, and we intend to shortly. But again, this is kind of a pre-application submittal because of the close working relationship we have in our
Sure. Thank you. Jeff?
When before we start the discussion, in the past, we've been advised by the town attorney that when there's matters concerning the yacht club before the commission, that members of the commission who are members of the yacht club have to recuse themselves from the discussion. And that also involves the discussion, not just the vote. I wish the town attorney had stayed in here, but that's been the guidance that we've received in the past, including when we dealt with more recent permit applications from the club.
It means they have to be absent from the discussion, or they can't vote?
They can't participate in the discussion because participating in the discussion could influence the vote. But it's not up to me to say that. It's up to the town attorney. That's what we've been advised in the past, and it's up to every member, him or herself. You can't tell someone to recuse themselves, but that's the advice. It'll be up to the person.
Well, thank you. That's very important to understand. There will be no vote today on anything. This is just an initial briefing.
I'm just saying
what I wanted to say is, at such time when you do come back and at that time when we have to make a formal vote, we're going to have to certainly have consulted with the town attorney on this point and have the correct people in place on the commission who are not members, as myself and others, to help you.
Yeah, I'm sure that's tried and true because I've represented Pequot through 4 or 5, maybe more different applications.
It should also be known too, that there's been times when there were 5 members present reviewing an application from Pequot and 3 had to recuse themselves, but the vote still counted. You don't need a quorum voting. The recused person's count is the quorum for the vote. Then you can have a vote that's less than a quorum. But that, again, the town attorney can advise.
I will consult with the town attorney. I'm sure he'll say something along the lines of what you're telling me.
You only need a quorum to start your meeting, but then, if you need, how many members do you have? You have 7. So you need 5 to start the meeting. So if you have 5 members here, or
4.
4 is the majority, that's correct, 4 of 7. So you need 4 to start the meeting. If one, recuses himself, the vote can still be 2 to 1 and pass. Only a majority of those voting. The quorum is only necessary to start the meeting because your rules don't require a majority of the members present, but just a majority of the members voting to pass an item.
These are important points, and we want to act transparently and appropriately, and I think we can manage this.
So, certainly. Again, more to the point of being here before the formal application submittal is made, so these discussions we have.
Does the club want comments now, or do you want comments now?
Yeah, the comments would be great. I think just to summarize a couple, to bring David's well-thought-out comments to a point. There's 2 aspects to this project at hand. There's really three aspects to the club's waterfront projects over the relatively near term. It's the seawall, it's the docks. Dredging is also interrelated into that, in considerations of some of these discussions, though it's not in front of us right here and now. It is in our thoughts. The seawall is somewhat, I believe, relatively simple. It's going to be elevating the wall to an appropriate level. We often interact with the folks at CTD about what elevation they'll let us go to. There's always a little back and forth on that. We represented the town at Perry's Green, and the state pushed back pretty aggressively on us to not allow us to raise that wall because we weren't supporting any of the statutory defined things that would need a new flood erosion control structure, one of which is water-dependent activities. So this, even though it's contiguous, it's a bit of a different story. So I think what you'll see from us next on the seawall is, after we interact with Sue Jacobson and the team at DEEP regarding their concurrence or non-adversity to a proposed elevation, you can just come back with an elevation on that wall. The docks, we can see there's a few Lego pieces, we call them things. The two orange docks, that's one dock. It's shown in two configurations, a stored configuration and an active configuration. The same as that blue dock, stored configuration and active configuration. We realize we're bound to the north and south by our riparian lines. We're not proposing to expand any further. We realize we're bound to the west by our own seawall property, and we're bound to the east by the federal project and the offsets from the harbor management plan. The modifications we're considering, it's adding those docks, but it's also adjusting the docks somewhat further offshore to match the 5-foot offset limit that's in your harbor management plan.
Just kind of see so existing configuration, slightly shorter docks. We have a jog in the dock here. So going to the proposed, kind of tweaking this dock a little bit to rearrange it and align it for ease of access, etc. As well as some dock extension.
So the docks would shift slightly further offshore. It varies, but the most distance further offshore is about 10 feet. That helps us twofold. It gets us into deeper water depth and minimizes the need for dredging. And I'm sure with all your commission has been through with respect to dredging, you understand that the more we can avoid dredging, the better off we would be. It doesn't obviate the need for it. It just makes it a bit better. And it also, depending on the timing of the seawall replacement, it makes any dredging that maybe necessarily slips less potentially harmful to the seawall. So that shift offshore is somewhat important to this. I think it is an improvement. And the reasonable question to be asked and to answer is what's the impact to the harbor? And that's something we've looked at because we have the prime pinch point there would be the transient mooring string that is out in front of the docks. And we judge, in the industry, we judge fairway distances as multiples of boat length. And it's a pretty common, comfortable fairway of having 1.5 times the largest boat as being a fairway distance. So you have your boat length plus another 50% of that maneuvering. So we would maintain about 82 feet between the position of the mooring string, including a 10-foot offset for boat beam, and the largest boat that can come into the harbor by the harbor management plan is 50 feet, so 75 feet would be a 1.5 multiple. So it's 75 against 82, which includes an offset, a beam offset. So from an operational design perspective, we have some comfort in that shift is not going to be detrimental to operation. So I suppose with that, it's going to get some questions.
How long a time frame before would this take to do these things?
The docks would be done in a single off-season. Now, construction in a single off-season is going to require contractual matters, procurement outside that off-season, such the docks are ready to be delivered, start to be installed in November, December, to be in place, piles, electrical utilities and the like, to be put back up and running. So that's, David had said, looking for, to start the project fall 25, which is give or take 18 months away. Knowing the length of permitting, we're kind of on track for that, but we don't have all the time in the world.
I like what you did with the junior dock and the service dock with the Lego pieces, you call it.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea, and, you know, the fact you can move it, you can get behind the gas dock now. If you need to store some vessels that don't go out often for members or whatever.
Yeah.
And then for the flow, though, having one long dock is I think will greatly help you folks come in and...
Thanks. That was, yeah, it was interesting when we did this, it was, we got through all the options, and David was there through the whole thing, and we don't have anything too earth-shattering to report. It's a good design. It works within the confines we have. The other thing I should point out, that blue Lego piece, the intention of that, when the club hosts regattas, junior regattas, and you probably all have seen it, where the boats are staged in the lawn, they launch down that gangway to the south of the club or the left of the sheet. It's a 6-foot-long gangway, so there's dolly boats down there. What we wanted to make, we called it a super finger, but a really wide finger that the boats could then roll all the way down and launch to the end. Otherwise, it is a real traffic concern. So that's the intention of that second quote Lego piece.
Jeff?
Don't mind. We're going back over 40 years now, looking at some of the same issues that we looked at back then, which was the beginning of and the reason for the harbor management plan. So at that time, the area that you've shown offshore of Waterwood of your docks, that was a federal channel, believe it or not, as a designated many years ago.
Yeah.
And also at that time, it was determined that the yacht club had, I think you got docks from some other place and you put them in, but they encroached into the federal anchorage. And so that was one of the problems that had to be addressed with the harbor management plan. So after many years actually, it was almost 10 years I think, of discussing this, there was a solution that was agreed to by everyone. And as a result of that, since then, the yacht club, I think, is the partnership between the yacht club and the town for managing the harbor has been sort of unique in Connecticut harbors. And that partnership resulted from the agreements that led to the harbor management plan, in the harbor management plan. So one of the things that resulted from the plan was that the federal legislation to change that area from a channel to an anchorage. It's that wide area between Perry Green and the country club. Because boats had been moored there for many years, and boats aren't supposed to be moored in an anchorage. So that was one part of the channel. Yeah. So the other solution, part of the solution, the old federal 6-foot anchorage was defederalized, where the yacht club has its duly permitted commercial mooring area that it's called. Also, in exchange for that defederalization, the yacht club agreed to provide certain boating services to the public, as was the commission with managing the harbor in the public interest. There was also discussion about the service dock, but I believe that the permits that you received after, I think it was you applied in 1994, I believe.
Mhm.
But that specifies the setback from the anchorage line. And I think, you say it's 5 feet? Is
Well,
that-
it's 5 feet in the harbor management plan. Now,
What does the permit call for?
I'd imagine the permit calls for whatever is there currently as was permitted at that time, but it's not a constant offset from the.
But I think that's
anchorage
one thing to check, to see what the permit is now, and if you're requesting to modify that offset.
We are, or requesting to move the docks, and again, this is, that history is not evident in the permits that we have. We recognize we're requesting to move offshore of the position they're currently in. And again, we don't know when those were authorized, when the harbor management plan was adopted. It's possible that, okay, the HMP doesn't say 5-foot offset except for Pequot Yacht Club. It says 5-foot offset of docks. So it could have been, all right, Pequot Sorted, here's the offset.
We can check the old permit. But the other thing is the consideration.
We're still going for a new permit. So it's whether the HMP offset of 5 feet doesn't apply to Pequot Yacht Club. They need to hold the old offset, because we're asking for a new permit.
Yeah, right, but I think that deciding whether the commission agrees to whatever the offset is, would the offset be less than 5 feet, or?
No.
Yeah, I think that's what.
So we're looking to move it out to meet the offset that's in the harbor management plan.
You moved the docks back in 1994.
Correct.
Thereabouts.
We don't know how much we're going to move out. We can go find that history, but we're still going to apply for a new permit.
Yeah. So I think that all can be worked out. So when you redo the bulkhead, that doesn't require making the bulkhead go out any farther. You're gonna rebuild it in place. The seawall.
You'll do it probably in kind.
In kind. So that's not pushing the docks out.
No, moving the docks out allows us to get some docks from grounding, move out into deeper water, get further away from the seawall, because the sequence of the seawall work relative to dock work is not evident right now.
Yeah.
And the seawall work might not be complete and comprehensive on the whole wall. So dredging is you never want to dredge too close to an old stack wall.
Yeah.
So the further away we can get, the better. And again, we recognize we're asking, again, this is kind of why we're in this pre-application mode. We recognize we believe it to fall within the recommendations of the HMP, but we want to make sure we're in concurrence on that.
And the other thing that didn't exist then but exists now is that Section 408 permit.
We recognize we need to go through 408 regardless.
Yeah. And that's a permit that the Corps issues with consideration of projects that could affect a federal navigation project, or actually any federal public works project. And based on what recent precedent has taken place in Greenwich, the Corps deferred to the Harbor Management Commission in that instance as to whether the setback was appropriate. Because the typical setback is 3 times the authorized depth of the channel or the anchorage, but that can't be unless there's compelling reasons otherwise. So that can't be achieved here. So within the setback guideline, but that's been approved and agreed to going back to the Harbor Management Plan. But that's just another consideration. I know we put 5 feet in here, whether that was an existing condition or what it ended up in the permit. We'll figure it out.
Again, it's not 5 feet currently, so we could look at what the permit is, but regardless, we're asking for a new permit, so the question to the commission is what is the applicability of the 5-foot offset to this project?
Yep. And my suggestion would be, for what it's worth, that the commission would consider having no objection to them going forward with the planning, with the understanding of continue to review it as it's developed for consistency with the Harbor Management Plan and the agreements that were reached many years ago for the approval of the plan.
You say today we should have a motion to not object?
I don't, that's up to you.
Well,
They're not-
I confuse myself.
I don't know if we, certainly this kind of discussion is consistent with the wonderful partnership and stewardship
Right.
that the Pequot Yacht Club has always demonstrated.
I suppose our ask at this point would be the commission's opinion with respect to the 5-foot offset as applicable to Pequot docks.
And that I would wanna look and see what the old permit said and what was agreed to back then. They may be perfectly fine, but I don't know what to say about that. I don't know what was agreed to in the permit that the yacht club then applied for after the resolution of the agreement for the harbor management plan. If that the offset, for example, was 9 feet, and now they're proposing 5 feet, we'd have to consider that. It's not an unreasonable request, but I think we'd want to know what was agreed to back then. Is my thought.
And the one thing I'll say, it's not consistent. It's not, they're not lined up together, so it would seem that.
I just think we want to make it clear that we're aware of what took place years ago. We're not dismissing it. We'll take that into consideration and along with the yacht club's needs.
Can the minutes specify something to that effect?
That you're going to continue to get further information?
Further information, and in particular, the issue of the 5-foot setback will be considered and explored as applications come forward related to that.
I wasn't saying that there's a problem. I just don't know. Just like to know what.
From the club's perspective, like we've outlined, we have 18 months, which is marginally comfortable. Go through all we have to go through. But we can't lose too many months. And this 5-foot offset is going to, I think, because we're going to come to your commission for a pre-application comment, and we wouldn't want to come to your commission with something that you wouldn't be able to, that you would object to. Right.
Yeah.
So I think we would like to resolve this in a timely manner such that we could ideally be back before you next month with a pre-application submittal.
Oh.
Would it be, Jeff, would it be a consensus, with the 5-foot offset as long as it's consistent with the agreement that's in place? Or no?
I think by next month, we just want to research the history of that,
Okay.
what the offset was agreed to and what was in the permit to implement the harbor management plan.
Yeah.
Not that we couldn't do something different, but we want to just have that as information when we're discussing it. And if the 5-foot offset is a significant thing with the 408 permit, where the Corps of Engineers is going to seek, at least based on the precedent in Greenwich, what the commission feels about that.
So we're laying this in front of the commission, not us in here. We see the difference of trying to get guidance of where the commission feels appropriate. This should be from where we stand as a club or where we stand as engineering consultants. We have a setback that's published and we're proposing to match that setback. We understand we have a permit that doesn't match that setback, but we're going for a new permit. So.
The
harbor management plan currently has the 5-foot offset.
5.
Right, so we're seeking to extend the docks a little bit and keep everything outside of that 5-foot offset.
Yeah, well,
So the piles and everything on the docks will be outside of that 5-foot offset.
And that seems perfectly reasonable. It's just
a
question of
right
like
now,
going back and seeing what the permit says and
I suppose my question is, if the permit says it's back 8 feet, it could just be that's what it was. Right. We're still applying for a new permit, so if the rules that are dictating our application at this point are what's in the HMP.
Jeff, are you thinking that because whatever the permit was before might impact all the other approvals and ought to be considered in some way?
I'm just saying it's additional information that we don't have. Why not take it out and look at it and just see what it says. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll do some sleuthing on our end as well.
So perhaps that before you make an application to us, we should try to clarify this matter.
But remember, that the process with DEEP is that the applicant, the yacht club, would come before the Harbor Commission with a pre-application submittal, before they can submit the application to DEEP. And then the commission would review that and most likely have no objections to it going forward to the actual permit application. And then there would be a process where that permit application works its way through the regulatory process, and eventually DEEP would publish a public notice to issue the permit. But, so the first step is, well, for us to do some research, but then for the club to have a pre-application submittal to the Harbor Commission. And then after that, to go ahead with the full permit application.
Right, and then that's where the time starts to get away from us. So we, ideally, if possible, like to come before your commission next month with a pre-application submittal.
So if I understand correctly, the HMP is consistent with the considered application, correct? It's setback, but the old permit may not be in compliance with
The old permit was issued after the Harbor Management Plan, right? So the Harbor Management Plan was adopted in March of 1995, and I don't know what date your permit is.
But I think that's the point. It's less than 5 feet now, but we just don't know what the permit says.
No, it's more than 5 feet.
I'm sorry, it's more than 5 feet now, we don't know what the permit says. But you're saying you're gonna submit for a new permit anyway.
Yeah,
And I
new
think the
permit
minutes in
application.
anticipation of this would reflect two things. One, a review of the setback, and two, a discussion with town attorneys so that the HMC is prepared to handle any kind of a vote in a pre-application if that comes forward in the next meeting,
And I have a
in
question.
terms of members' participation.
Are there any other town boards or commissions that are gonna need to look at this and vote on your application?
No, well, Shellfish. Yeah.
Would you not need a coastal site plan review, because it's a flood and erosion control structure, and that requires a coastal site plan review by TP&Z?
We would need a coastal site plan review for the seawall for sure, but that's likely gonna be a secondary phase of this. So what we're moving towards with most pace is the docks.
Here's the policy. In the absence of compelling reasons to the contrary, all new structures below the mean high water line should be set back no less than 5 feet from the boundary line of the nearest channel, anchorage, or fairway, and all vessels tied up or anchored at such structures must be outside the boundary line of the nearest channel, anchorage, or fairway.
Yeah.
So that general policy,
That's compliant to that.
seems to be compliant, but for the sake of being diligent, I think we should just look at the permit that was issued and do that before next month.
Yeah, can Jeff do that research, prepare a memo or email or something like that, giving you the information you need? Is that okay with you, Jeff?
I think it's up to you. You want to go ahead before the next meeting then?
Ideally, we'd like to be in front of your commission at the next month for with the pre-application submittal form, giving all parties 4 weeks to review.
Would an email consensus be sufficient if we had that prior to the meeting or no?
I don't know. We don't have a drawing in front of us. Just if there's any issue with your permit or application.
You're right. I appreciate that. And I'm trying, I suppose what I'm wondering is if we're going for a new permit that is gonna comply to the HMP, which postdates the permit, what is the importance of the last permit? It's gonna show position of the dock and what the offsets are.
I don't know. It's just it's information we don't have. And if you wished on your own to just go ahead and, submit the pre-application next month.
Right.
And the commission could have data at that time and could say we either disagree or don't.
Right.
But that's up to you, whether you don't need approval from the commission to submit the pre-application.
No, but we don't wanna come back if you say, no, we want more time, or we don't wanna blindside anyone with anything. as open book as we can be here.
I'm just saying, it's the first time we've heard this, and we didn't see any,
No, exactly.
before the meeting. And we certainly respect that you've taken this approach, rather than coming in and saying, here it is.
Rather than coming in with the pre-application form,
Yes.
which you would have seen 2 weeks before with no context.
Yeah, no context.
So this is the context. Let us do research on the permit.
Oh, we could talk,
I mean,
Devin.
we'll-
If you can talk and then give us I think we need some recommendation from yourself on this, Jeff. No?
I'm just saying that this was the genesis, if that's the right word, of the harbor management plan years ago.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that we have all the information, and we're not fluffing over something that, resulted in years of,
It's
I
like,
don't think it will be, but
Yeah.
why not be?
it's like that old cliche, we don't know what we don't know.
Don't know what we don't know. How valid it might be right now with the HMP in place, we don't know. We're not trying to do something that's not aligned with any of those things. But with the best information we have, we believe what we've shown you tonight is compliant with your own regulations and will be an improvement for the club and work well with the harbor.
And I think there was some changes in your service dock from what we talked about in the harbor management plan and what you actually did. We were hoping that you would be able to put this, extension of the service dock, I think, out, and then that you didn't need to do that. But again, that's part of the background of researching a little bit what we did.
Right, and what you see in that, drawing there is fully permitted by
Oh, yeah.
all parties.
But I think at the time, we were even thinking that there could be a service dock extension that would be a seasonal, actually encroachment into the anchorage.
Again, there was some change, I don't,
That's what I'm getting at there.
whatever it was over the last 40 years, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And we're looking to, within the time frame we have, to get a buildable project going.
In 1994, in May, the yacht club reconstructed its service dock and marina floats so that no part of these structures extends into the existing federal navigation project. This reconstruction was accomplished to the satisfaction of the Corps of Engineers. The service dock was pulled back so that was all part of the compliance and the resolution of the
So
issues.
we don't know now, nor might we ever know, is the distance it came back was because that was a concrete flotation module size. And it came back for a 10-foot offset rather than a 5-foot offset, because that's just how it fit.
So you pulled them back in May of '94, and in July, you applied for the federal permits to maintain them where you got them back to. I'd just like to see those permits as part of information.
Yeah.
All right, so can we bring this, the two of you keep talking? We'll expect, unless there's some change, a pre-application at the next meeting.
Yeah, well,
And the outcome of your conversation will be shared with us by Jeff, either before or at that meeting.
That's perfect. And we really appreciate your time
You okay
and
with all that?
consideration.
And the minutes of the meeting will reflect the summation of that.
Yes. And Jeff, just so you know, the Conservation Department likely has, it's all indexed, and it's probably down in the basement at this point, all Pequot Yacht Club, different permits and such.
I'm sure I have that too, and we can get them easily from Deep and the Corps of
Okay.
Engineers.
Okay,
Great. Thank you.
thank you.
John, thank you, commissioners. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for continuing to be the great stewards of the harbor that you are too.
May
We-
I also say that the yacht club has accommodated, we'll talk about this, the Corps of Engineers survey boat.
Yes, thank you for,
last
Yeah.
year. So that boat didn't have to be removed from the water each day from the launching ramp, and that's what they've always done.
Can we also make sure we get clarity for the next meeting for the members of the yacht club to understand what they should and should not
yes,
recuse themselves for discussion and vote?
yes, I will talk with the town attorney or email with him and get guidance on that point. We went a little bit out of order, but we had all of our guests here and I wanted to take care of you. Brian, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I know Jeff, we went out of order intentionally because we had our guests from Pequot to take care of. Do you want to talk about the security cameras in Southport Harbor that the police are requesting, or should we let Jeff talk about the other matters, of old business that relate to Lower Wharf and dredging and so forth?
Your call. You've got me until about 6:25, so I'll be in the road. So your call, Mr. Chairman.
How much time do you think you'll need, Brian?
I could do this in less than 5 minutes right now, quickly.
Why don't you go ahead?
Sure. So, as some of you may recall, last year I discussed the idea of having a security camera system installed at Yee Yacht Yard. Specifically, having the cable run in, the cable modem be run in, and having two cameras, one looking to the south towards the Lower Wharf and out, and one looking to the north for security purposes. The feed would go in to the town's marine building. It's FIN Plus, the Emergency Communications Center. Plus, I would have access where we can watch, keep an eye what's going on, and also have a recording if something happened in the harbor. At the same time, once we have that infrastructure, we can add a public camera at Yee Yacht Yard looking out with a wind gauge, speed and direction. Anyone in the public can jump on the website, through our website, and find out what it looked like right now on the sound, how windy it was, actual breeze, and what direction it was coming from, whether you're a sailor or a fisherman or a kayaker. So we got some quotes at that time, and the cost to install, to buy the equipment and to install just the surveillance side of it was $16,000. It was not expected that the rest of it would cost more than $1,000 more. I presented that for, to see what if the commission's take on what they would like in that regard. There was some discussion. There was some grant money potentially available. The commission ultimately decided it was concerned about the future costs for any replacement, as well as the annual cost. You'd have to provide a cable service there, like a Optimum or a fiber optic type cable. I thought it was something we should consider. It's not in anyone else's budget. We do have a lot of assets sitting in there in the harbor to keep an eye on. And anecdotally, I can tell you there's already been one burglary or break-in of boats this year at South Benson I heard of just last weekend talking to folks. Someone did break into a number of boats there to steal items. So I just want to put that back on the table. If you think, if you're interested in pursuing the possibility of a grant, there are any available through Homeland Security or Port Security grants. I just want to make sure you are aware of that, the commission, and what your pleasure may be in that regard.
What was the cost that you had said, the estimate that you had received?
$16,000, and that included the two, basically the two cameras installation, the cabling that needed to be run. If we wanted to add another one now or in the future for the public to look at, because these are security cameras, they're not available to the public. They're made for law enforcement purposes, and for the fire department to watch. If there's a flooding issue, they would watch the water levels. I know the chief indicated he frequently uses these to watch high tides to see what's happening in the area as well. But that last year was $16,000. Plus, it'd be some type of a monthly fee because you'd have to get a cable there because there is no. While there's electricity at the little building in Yee Yacht Yard, there's nothing. Okay.
The minutes of that meeting talked about a port security grant from FEMA at Homeland Security that might be available. Do you know if that's a particular source you'd still want to pursue, or is it unknown?
Yeah, I don't. It's unknown. I reached out to purchasing. I haven't heard back if there is any funds that they can reach out for grants. I didn't go any further last year because the commission was not interested in even pursuing a grant for the money.
Yeah, so that deadline expired.
Yeah.
Commissioner?
I just want to make you folks aware of that.
Commissioners, any comments or
Well,
reaction?
this is Doug. I had comments at the last meeting, and I'll, I guess, echo them again at this meeting because I don't think they've changed. I think my concern here is that the management, the maintenance, and the monitoring of such cameras would be outside of the authority of the Harbor Management Commission. This is a security and a law enforcement issue, and it's unclear to me why either local police or local fire wouldn't apply for the grants or fund it themselves, because the Harbor Management Commission isn't structured to purchase them, replace them, monitor them, any of those things. And so, personally, I think having a camera would be cool to see the water, and I can see the benefits in this day and age of having it. I just feel as though the jurisdiction of it is outside that of the Harbor Management Commission, because who's going to monitor these cameras? And to what purpose? Who's going to maintain them? Who's going to be budgeted for them? And it's not within the Harbor Management's jurisdiction to be a law enforcement agency, or rescue for that matter.
I would like to
I
add,
agree.
I would like to add that I don't think we currently have any security issues that require surveillance. I don't think we have a history of security. Any more than you have on Jennings Beach or any of the other open spaces like that. I mean, you could make a case for having security cameras on all these public properties, and we don't. So why do we need one? So I don't think there's a history of the security issues that require a camera.
Great.
Yeah. I can imagine that the people in the area might also be like having security cameras up there, for your own personal privacy issues, walking around and everything. It's just something that's not optimal. I mean, beyond the safety aspect, just, feeling like you're monitored when you're in the harbor or whatever. So.
So the questions that were raised some months ago continue to be present among commissioners, and the reservations about this. So Brian, I don't think you're getting.
No, that's fine. I just was asked to bring it up again, so I did. That's all. That's my mission here.
Yeah, it's beyond our scope and jurisdiction, and it's really a matter for the police. That seems to be the consensus that I'm hearing from commissioners.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Brian. All right, I'm going to put my bench item as the last item, if we get to it today. I'd like to, Jeff, go back to old business and the items that you were going to talk about, Lower Wharf repairs, the grant applications, and all the things I'm sure you want to talk about.
Mr. Hurley has left, the town engineer, so I was hoping he would stay and we could thank him for his assistance.
Was he in the room? Did I see him?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was right here.
He was waiting, and
I didn't see him. I'm very sorry.
So Thursday and Friday of last week, we worked on, I guess it's not really called a grant application. It's an application for state bonded funds that the town's legislators submitted to the governor's office. And I don't know if this is something that's often done at the end of the legislative session, but it's not a competitive process where our project is reviewed against others. But there's an opportunity of the State Bond Commission to authorize funds for the Lower Wharf repair. And we prepared an application both for the Senate to submit through the office of Senator Huang, and also for the legislators' House of Representatives to submit. And both they were submitted on Friday. And the request, we had a new updated opinion of probable cost. The previous opinion of probable cost had been $800 and something thousand. The new opinion prepared by Race also is $1.2 million. So the cost has gone up. That also includes an element of the project that we don't have the permit for, which is to restore the north pier at the Lower Wharf. So that's sort of an optional, I guess, part of the project now. In addition to Mr. Hurley, Terry Brown from the finance office helped. Betty ran up and down the stairs to get information for us. and it was a nice cooperative effort on behalf of the town to put this together. And also, Terry cleared the submittal of it with the Board of Selectmen's office and also with the town finance department, which apparently we needed to do so that they knew we were applying for this grant. I don't know what, Bill said he didn't know what the time frame is to see whether this has been to be accepted. We did say that in the past they've applied for these funds before, and their success rate is about 50%. But when we would know about this, that's relative to us applying for a grant from the Connecticut Port Authority for the same project, which is due July 1. And we talked with the Port Authority because we didn't want them to think we were trying to diminish or their grant program, and they said, fine, it's up to the town. If they think there's a source of funds, please go ahead. So we still maybe anticipate that we will be applying for a grant from the Connecticut Port Authority. However, that brings up also the need to attest that we have a 20% cost share. So the 20% cost share that we have now committed by the town is relative to the $800,000 opinion of probable cost. The $1.2 million, we don't have that, so that thought has to be given to that.
Does the 1.2 include the north section?
Yes.
Yes.
If you were to subtract that, would it come back to 8?
It would, no.
No.
It would, if we did that, it would take off 225,000, so it would come down to about 1 million.
So we're working on it, and we've also asked that the representatives of the Port Authority visit Southport and take a look at the project site, which they were going to do on the day that the thruway caught fire in Norwalk, so that didn't work out too well, but they're going to hopefully do that in the near future. So we have that request in. I don't know what, we'll find out more when we might know about it.
Let me just make a point of clarification. As you've heard Kim and myself talk over the last, we've been lobbying Senator Huang and Representative Leeper on this matter since Christmas time, and they have been very dutiful about it, and this was the moment where the keyboard hits the paper. The commission itself is on record voting to support the L-head, one part of this. I raised the question personally, hearing all these opportunities for grantsmanship. So if there was more money available, could we look at that again? If there was enough money to do all of it that would come our way, could we as a commission reconsider that or talk about that? And so Devin structured the probable cost with that in mind as an option. But that's not in the permit.
I see.
You see. So we're still in keeping with everything that was voted on here, but we're giving ourselves maybe a little wiggle room to look at something else if there's an interest in doing that, and money that comes from Hartford.
I was thinking when you were talking, and this was brought up by the finance department when we were doing this, the town submitted this grant application, this application. The commission had voted to submit an application for the SHIP grants, the SHIP grant to the Port Authority, did not vote to do this particular submittal.
That's right.
So the town submitted it, and they thought it might also be appropriate after the fact for the commission to express support for that submittal, because we did it without this commission actually voting on that particular submittal. So I don't know how you want to handle that, but it might be good to have a resolution in support of this application that was made by the town last week. So it's recognized that the commission is supportive of it. That was a suggestion from the finance department.
It seems like a good thing to do. I would welcome such a resolution. Is there a resolution to support the town's grant the idea of the town applying through the House and through the Senate to the State Bond Commission for funding to repair and rebuild Lower Wharf?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can we vote on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good.
Aye.
Good. All right, so there's unanimous approval for the application for that funding from the bond commission through the House and Senate channels. Thank you. And if anyone wants to see the application, send me an email. I have copies of them, and they're kind of interesting reading. And you know, if the way it's put together, if you want to see that, if you have no time for that, don't bother. But if you are interested in seeing that kind of information, I'll be happy to forward you the copies that I was copied in on, because I think it's worth knowing that.
Should those go on the town's website?
Oh, gee. Should the applications go on the
I'm
town?
wondering, I'm asking.
Geez, I don't know what the precedent for that is.
History?
It was done actually by the, it was filed by the engineer, by Bill Hurley, not by, Bill Hurley signed off on it. So that's, I think,
I'm gonna be working on your website next week, so, okay.
so if Bill want, I don't, it's a question for Bill Hurley, it seems to me, not me. I was in the background, really. Cheering on. Jeff, did you want to continue with any of the other items under old business?
I think the most important one is Tim's report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Town management, dredging, yay. So we're making some progress. The surveyors were here. They're gonna come back, they did the water work, they're gonna come back and stake out the contours of the dredging, what's gonna be dredged. So you'll actually be able to see a line with stakes in the sand about what the line of the dredging. And then the land crew arrives in July, and those are the guys who are actually gonna start with the excavator and dig up some of the sand and put it in some of the trucks. So those guys are arriving in July, not to start the work, but to at least survey, take a look at the sand dunes and see what they have to do. So we're moving ahead in that area. We're not apparently moving ahead with the permission to get the construction equipment across Casco Beach and that little spit of land to the country club. We heard today from the project manager that, quote, due to, the Army Corps is concerned due to conflicting information and apparent uncertainties about ownership, that they want a title search. And we know that according to if the Corps does it and they volunteer to do the title search, it'll take a while. And they asked the town if they would be willing to do the title search. That happened today. As of 4 o'clock this afternoon, I hadn't seen an answer from the town, so I'm not quite sure whether the town attorney did volunteer in April to do a title search, but he indicated at that time that it would take the town some time to do it. So the Corps is planning on doing the dredging starting October 1st. We don't have any permission for the equipment to get across the stretch of property about which they have, they've seen conflicting information and apparent uncertainties about ownership. So,
Would they potentially accept an opinion letter from town council instead of a title search?
well, the town attorney had indicated in April that he would be willing to sign the easement, but that the town cannot make any representations about the ownership. And that's where we sit. The Corps has not responded to that email of his. This response that due to the conflicting information and uncertainties, we would like a title search.
But the country club wouldn't object either, so if both
Correct.
parties, the country club or the town, agree, and you have two easements, are they worried about a third-party surprise?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew. We're not having long conversations, detailed conversations. This response today
was the response. We did unofficially, quietly make an offer of, well, what would you think if the country club and the town both were willing to sign easements? And they haven't answered that question. They haven't answered the town attorney's willingness to sign the easement. They did say originally, again, back in April, that they had constitutional issues about taking the equipment across the property if they didn't know who the owner, if they weren't satisfied as to who the owner was. And so, unfortunately, that's where we're standing. That's where we're. And as you recall, most of the area between Sasko Beach and the wall that borders the western edge of the channel is they are asserting something called navigational servitude, which means it doesn't, for most of the area that the equipment is going to go across, they don't care about ownership. There's a very small section of property that's at issue, and it's, conflicting information and apparent uncertainties. And unfortunately, we've not been able to have any kind of dialogue with the real estate people. The town attorney's questions to the real estate people have not been answered, and I don't know what to tell you. That's where we are.
This is equipment for actually removing the sand, or this is equipment for carting the sand away? It's for removing the sand, right?
Yeah.
Can't that equipment come in on a boat?
No, they can't, because part of what the land crew is gonna do when they come in July is, the angle of the dredging line is important. The Corps has an angle that they want to create, and DEEP is gonna care about that because they don't want the endangered plants to be undermined. So creating that angle is important, and the feeling from the Corps is that they can't create that angle with the barge. They need the equipment.
No, what I meant is, couldn't a ferry bring the equipment? In other words, I was just down in the islands, and there was a very similar thing, and so they brought the earth moving equipment in
From water, yeah.
from the water. Dropped the
Again,
front of the boat down and rolled it off.
Privately, we've said all these things, but the Corps is not having a conversation with us about it. The Corps is saying, we have constitutional issues, if we don't know who the owners are, until the ownership issue is resolved, we need a title search. So, privately, several of us have talked about that. What happens if they just bring in the Currituck or the Currituck sister and just dredge from the water and the heck with the slope angle. But the Corps has a plan, and apparently that's the plan that they intend to follow. Now,
Is that the only way for the equipment to come in?
They can't get it down the beach club, the country club road.
Can't make the turn from the South Dakota down that very steep entrance to the club. We didn't talk about removing the wall temporarily, but it's a big, heavy rig that they want to use, they have to use for reach. Their goal is to excavate the sand, but from as much of it they could from land, from the water with this specialized dredge that they have. The problem with the specialized dredge is you can't dig a slope, you can box cut. And so they put this large machine on the beach up one side and dig it just the way they did it last time. There was much more participation last time by town, the club, everybody than there was this time. This time the Corps of Engineers came in and turned it over to the real estate department to the city. So it's a different set of circumstances.
So next steps are,
Unfortunately, the next steps don't depend on us. The next steps depend on the Corps. The Corps' response to the town attorney, his statement that he's willing to sign the easement, and whether the real estate department is going to go along with that. I mean, apparently not, since the latest email from the Corps is that they would like to have a title search. Would the town be willing to do it? So now, give the first selectman's office a call tomorrow and see would the town be willing to do it, and if so, what kind of timing we're talking about. But the town attorney said, again, in April, that title search would take some time.
But we don't have a response from the Corps that in the absence of a title search, 2 easements would work. We don't have a response one way or the other.
We have a verbal response that wouldn't work.
They want a title search, and title search will take time, and there are other challenges too.
It takes time and money. I mean, you have to hire a title company and attorneys, and they have to go back through the records. And, you know, one of the things that the town attorney said to the Corps in April was that we have been unable to locate all property records. So if the town attorney is unable to locate them, I really don't know what that means.
So this is more involved than a regular residential title search. This is far more encompassing and will result in a lot of time.
Apparently.
Yes.
I don't want to interrupt, but the Country Club of Fairfield in 2008 or 2007 went through a 2-year program to confirm their title, confirm the property was surveyed out and they closed the survey, a permanent survey, in other words, they owned physically the land that they thought was theirs was theirs. So physically they did that, which was a survey effort and a title search effort. It came up, the conclusion was that the Country Club of Fairfield did own a lot of data and lawyer legal opinion. I'm just wondering whether or not it would be appropriate to have Jeff discuss with the manager of the club, who's up somewhat up to speed on this. Have a discussion with him and find out what the country club, not the yacht club, what the country club has in their file. Because there was a lot of discussion about that piece of land, all from the beach pavilion or whatever, the beach pavilion all the way around, all the way out to the end of Texas Beach. There was a lot of discussion. And the title search people reviewed all of the titles, all the records. Probably cost it's a low 6-figure number they put into it. It took them 1.5 to 2 years. One of the title search companies basically gave up, just said that they couldn't deal with it. They didn't have enough time left. So they moved to another title search company. But I think the work is good, and I think it proves out. I know that the Country Club was offered title insurance, which they bought. So that, to me, means that somebody knows who owns what. And you don't get title insurance unless you get a legal opinion from a title attorney. So I think that it would be good to push them a little bit and find out what records and...
Yeah. So is that something that Jeff should do, or is that something that our town attorney should do?
Well, I think the authority at the moment would be the commission. And it's their project and they want to get it done. Mm-hmm. And I can talk to Tim Moynihan, the general manager, and just say, this is important, we're going to get a call from Jeff or whoever. And is there anything in the club file or record that would help the Corps or help the town attorney understand who owns what? It's not too complicated.
That's a great idea.
You're okay with that?
We'll keep trying.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Meaning that if the Corps of Engineers would accept this work that's already been done, we can bypass all that and move forward.
I'm thinking that. This is a strange world.
But the parcel that's in question is actually part of the Country Club of Fairfield.
I have no idea.
That's
the issue. It's kind of a no
well,
man's
but
land.
at least from the Country Club of Fairfield's perspective, they think it's part of their property.
Yeah, well, maybe, if it's not encompassed in this work,
No, I
not
don't
included in this work, then they're putting something with the town over.
They have insurance.
I don't think there's that declaration. I think there's a small piece of property over the wall where the thing would go.
Between the Country Club of Fairfield's
It's
property
unclear
and Tasco Beach.
So this would reveal who potentially owns or doesn't own.
Right, because they have to look at all the surrounding pieces in order to...
But if that property is not included in this title search work, it goes back to, is it owned by the town? And if they can't determine that, we're back at square one.
For what it's worth, the difference now compared to what we have done twice in the past is that the town had access along the shoreline. and the town DPW did the excavation. And that was done with essentially a memorandum of agreement among the town, the country club, and the Harbor Management Commission. You know, the town wouldn't damage the property and we'd clean up after and stuff like that. But since the federal government is involved, it requires a more lawyerly approach. And the issue I think that's significant is the town's official property maps don't reflect the understandings that we have about property ownership. And so it's really a town issue, because if the federal government isn't going to enter into an agreement, what do the official maps of the town show? And that's where the issue is. And I think that's what we're trying to resolve.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, well, anyway.
It's kind of a historic ambiguity.
Yeah.
It's been around for a long time.
It's crazy to think in this day and age that you can know who owns a piece of land in a town like Fairfield.
Underwater. But it's interesting because the area in question, you know, historically, we've been interested and have done much research on the wall and the jetty on the side of the harbor. And, you know, again, going back to 1829 and one of the first federal navigation projects authorized in the United States, and the state and the governor being involved. But that's not what we're dealing with now. That's not an issue now.
Right.
It's the area to the east.
Right.
Which some of us never had any history in researching any of that.
No reason to look at it.
All right, well,
We don't need a motion to suggest that Sand Management, which is largely Kim and Jeff, reach out to Country Club of Fairfield Management.
And the country club, we've had several meetings with the club and with the Corps of Engineers, so
they're teed up.
trying to work on it.
Yeah.
We'll keep,
I mean, it doesn't sound like it's a case of nobody.
So it's a matter of carrying on.
Unless it's a third-party surprise, right?
Yeah.
It's owned by...
the positive part is that the Corps hasn't stopped the planning.
Take it out.
You are.
Yeah, they wouldn't be investing time and effort in surveying.
I think that's an important point.
They wouldn't invest the time and effort in surveying if they didn't think there was an end in sight.
And to Doug's point, though, changing the scope of the project and how it's done is very difficult now, because they've prepared an environmental impact assessment of the project.
Yeah.
That's gone through the review process that calls for doing it the way we're talking about. And now, I didn't know, maybe they've done it, I didn't hear today, but they're about to submit their application to DEEP for the state approval to do this. And as we know, whenever DEEP's been involved, something else comes up to have to worry about. But they're moving forward with all of that.
Good.
But it all depends on the resolution of this.
Well, that could be a key piece of information along with the other agreements to maybe move it along.
All right, are there other items in old business, Jeff, that you want to speak to, or can we take 5 or 10 minutes to talk about benches at Lower Wharf?
Well, we were talking with the TP&Z members about a submittal but we don't have, it's not urgent tonight.
Okay.
We're still working on that. Had several discussions, and TPC didn't bring it up at its last meeting. But other town agencies, conservation, forestry, we had a meeting with forestry last week, expressing concern about the POCD, that, you know, you read the executive summary of it, it doesn't indicate that it's a plan of conservation and development. It says that the purpose is for guiding investment, which implies that the purpose is to guide development, and so that there's concern about that. And then, without belaboring the point, you know that there were several pending bills in the legislature. Significant one that passed would change the operation of the Connecticut Siting Council, which has been reviewing the monopoles going through Southport. And that bill passed. I don't know if it's been signed by the governor, but the purpose of it is to correct the regulatory bias of the Siting Council in favor of the utility companies. It's going to change the operation of the Siting Council, which is, of course, many of us think is a good thing.
Representative Cleaver told me today that actually the governor doesn't have to sign it for it to become law. If a certain amount of time passes, I think she said 5 days after the Senate, but I think that's already happened. So it can become law without the governor signing it.
Quite interesting detail, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a positive outcome from something that's still will be pending in court for a while, I'm sure. Anything else, Jeff, or?
No.
All right, so on the last item is about benches at Lower Wharf. I don't know, apart from the harbor management plan, do we develop policies and state them on our website, or can we have, what is the document we need to point to address the question that was asked of us by Ms. McMahon and will be asked by others and has been asked by others?
Wouldn't it start with the deed?
Yeah.
The deed limits it to 3, and we can.
But the deed also has very clear language about signage.
Structure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Structures, yeah.
Structure with a plaque. There already is, I don't know how it got there, a plaque on one of the 3 benches dedicated to a Bob Lee. Does anyone know who Bob?
I remember Bob Lee.
Yeah, Bob Lee
Yeah.
owned what we call the water lot, which is now partly owned by the town of Fairfield, and which is what we were discussing about tonight.
He was a political activist in town and put a lot of time and effort into different agencies, and he was well known.
Okay. Well, someone put a plaque on one of the benches that says dedicated to Bob Lee.
Okay.
So it's kind of a little tricky to say we're not putting plaques on benches.
Well, it could have been an individual just went and did it. I mean, who knows the origin of the Bob Lee plaque?
I don't know. Yeah.
Nobody took it off. Nobody put it on.
Right.
Should call the Corps of Engineers, and maybe they have a record of it.
So, I mean, what I can do is write to Mrs. McManus and say it's been our practice not to add memorial plaques to benches, which are in fact put there by the Parks and Recreation Department, and that we're limited by the deed to 3.
Yeah.
And she asked me how did that plaque get on there. I'll ask her to talk to.
So is this about replacing those benches? Because
she would like to replace one. In her view, one of the 3 benches, I mean, all of the benches are weathered, quite weathered, because of where they are and what happens to benches on that land. She would like to replace one of the benches and memorialize it, and she would pay for that.
Yeah,
I guess the problem.
There's also plaques on the rock.
That's another matter, yeah.
Honestly, they're an eyesore, I think. I mean, this is my personal opinion, but who wants to go to this beautiful space and see these plaques all over the place? You know? Especially when there are people nobody has any idea who they were.
Some of those plaques actually were required by the deed, but others not. I agree with you. I'm just trying to find a way to proceed with her that becomes a model for others that raise the same question, because it keeps coming up.
Yeah.
It's not going to. There'll be another question after Mrs. McManus, I'm sure. We've seen it come up twice in 2 years.
Who was the other one that wanted? You remember?
You remember the name of the family?
Yeah.
Panis?
Yeah, the Panis family whose son Jake passed away a few years ago in an accident. Wanted to put a memorial, some sort of commemoration to their son.
And also there's one proposal for Russell. Remember that?
Chief Russell?
Eric Russell?
Yeah. Somebody wanted a plaque for him. And
well, there was a plaque in his name down at South Benson.
Okay.
There's a plaque for Harris at the Lower Wharf, and also Steve Galvin.
Right, that's in the rock, right?
That's in the rock.
So, I mean, is there precedent of the town or commissions putting in plaques for individuals, or only for those who have, community activities, services that they're being recognized? I mean, if it's, you know what I mean, that would be one sort of thing, but we don't have a policy. There isn't a policy to refer to page 5, section 3.
That's what I'm aware of.
But unfortunately, there's precedent, and that's the problem. So once we've granted a few plaques, then how do you say no to other people?
Yeah, but the some on the rocks have some, they were placed there for their civic activities that led to the lower wharf.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if this request has no background in civic activity, then you could say no.
It doesn't fit the qualification, yeah.
It's
just her personal.
But if it does, you can say, well, we'll consider it maybe.
Okay.
Well, the plaques that are on the rock, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't looked at it closely, but there's one that was required by the deed for Mr. Treves, is that right?
Yes.
That was required, and that's there. And then there's another plaque related to Steve Galpin, which was, I don't know how that got there.
He was instrumental in starting the blessing of the fleet.
But someone had to bless the plaque creation and put it on the rock. Was that his commission or Park and Rec or?
I don't recall.
Neither.
Harris Russell was the chairman of the Harbor Commission, and so he was recognized there too. I'll find out how we did that.
Yeah, but she was asking about the bench, so.
Right. And that gentleman whose name is there, what was his background again?
Political person in town. I mean, just a public-spirited community leader.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a qualification for having a plaque. It's not any individual's whim. Which
I would,
is what,
I think.
What Jess is, I mean, then, Jeremy and Joni Frost can say, I want to put a plaque up for anybody. I mean, where do you stop? How do you decide which homeowner, as part of these deeds, has the right to put a new plaque on?
I might just say to her, our practice has not been to memorialize benches.
Right. Or Mm-hmm.
Only 3 benches are allowed. There may be other memorial opportunities you can talk about with the Parks and Recreation Department.
That's true. Sounds like a good answer to me.
Yeah.
If you go up to Smith Richardson Golf Course, there's benches all over the place on 18 holes, and there's plaques everywhere.
Yeah.
And I personally think it's out of control.
It's South Benson. If you walk along the sidewalk at South Benson, it's plaque and bench city.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I know what to say. I'll run it by some of you before I write to her. And
give it a shot.
And that might be effectively our policy going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, could you just make a policy that says no plaques?
Right.
Period, full stop.
I'd vote for that.
Because the complications associated with the deed.
No plaques.
Yeah, it's also interesting. I mean, I'm reading the deed. I'm not town attorney or an attorney, but the deed references no structures of any character. It's a question whether a plaque would be considered a structure of character or not. But the deed also specifies a plaque, and it doesn't specify any other plaques or any future plaques.
Okay, a plaque. There you are.
There we go.
The plaque from Mr.
But again, I think that would be for somebody whose pay grade is higher than mine as it relates to that. But I think the point is.
You didn't get your raise?
No, not
He's
yet.
still waiting.
But I think the response needs to be that, that we entered according to a deed, which is no structures of any character, and it's specific about, a plaque that's there. So unfortunately.
Okay, I'll draft something to that effect and run it by some of you. Is there any further business at hand? Comments from the public? I welcome a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
I need a second.
I can't.
A second.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Very good.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody. We are adjourned. Thank you.